start standing right where this point is. And then stand close together in a line. Line up. It's a little bit better. Come forward, yeah. This way. Both of you want to come right here. I think honestly we could probably fit two more over here if we want to switch two sides over there. Yeah. Good, I can see this over here.
You need them? Yes. Right. Here.
Good morning, everyone. Today is a historic day. I am excited and proud to share with you my appointment for the Supreme Court. We received a list of 5 highly qualified candidates from the Commission on Appellate Court Appointments, narrowed from an even larger pool of applicants, and I want to thank every person who went through the rigorous application process in order to be considered. These 5 final individuals were carefully reviewed and thoroughly vetted, and I personally spoke with each of them. Each candidate has integrity, experience, and honor, and I'm grateful that we have such outstanding individuals in our legal community. As a social worker who has supported victims of domestic violence and homeless youth, I've seen firsthand how our justice system impacts our everyday lives, particularly the lives of vulnerable Arizonans. I prioritize an appointee who is not only eminently qualified, but also someone who reflects our state and who's committed to making our legal system work for everyday people. Of course, I was focused on credentials and experience, but also on appointing a justice who will uplift those who need it most. Every day, thousands of Arizonans interact with our justice system. The decisions made in our courtrooms often don't make headlines, but they can dramatically alter the lives of people throughout our state. While all of the candidates are well qualified, one standout applicant fully appreciates the weight these decisions carry. It is my absolute honor and privilege to announce that today I am formally appointing Judge Maria Elena Cruz to the Arizona Supreme Court. Let me share a little bit about Judge Cruz's credentials. She received her Juris Doctorate from the University of Arizona. As an attorney, she has argued before municipal, state, and federal courts, and been both a defender and prosecutor. Beginning as a judge pro tem for the Cocopah Indian Tribe, Judge Cruz has served on the bench since 2005. Her tenure as a judge has also included the Yuma County Superior Court, where she was presiding judge, and she currently serves on the Arizona Court of Appeals, which she was appointed to by Governor Doug Ducey in 2017, and on which she was previously presiding judge. Throughout her career, Judge Cruz has been devoted to the law and delivering outcomes that help people. When she was a trial court judge, she volunteered to serve in drug court, where she guided over 100 participants on their journey to sobriety, helping them become productive members of their communities. Because of her success in this capacity, she was asked to manage the Swift, Accountable, Fair Enforcement, otherwise known as SAFE, court program, which aims to reduce recidivism. She then started Yuma County's first ever restitution court, which has helped claim thousands of dollars in restitutions for victims and is a model for the state. In each of her positions, Judge Cruz has demonstrated a deep understanding of the real effects her decisions have on people's lives, and a clear commitment to equal and impartial justice. Even today, Judge Cruz still returns to her home county once a month to preside over restitution court. Judge Cruz, the attorney and judicial officer, is eminently qualified to serve on our state's highest court. But Judge Cruz, the person, gives me confidence she will be a justice who gives a voice to working class people in every corner of our state. She is the daughter of working-class parents who came to Arizona, worked hard to give her a better life. For 32 years, she has called Yuma County her home. And after 113 years, she will be the first Latina and the first Black Arizonan to serve on the Arizona Supreme Court. From being raised by working-class parents, one an immigrant from the Dominican Republic, to serving on the highest court in Arizona, Maria Elena Cruz has lived the Arizona promise. Support for Judge Cruz was bipartisan and overwhelming. We received letters from the entire Yuma County Board of Supervisors, Yuma Mayor Doug Nichols, Yuma County Sheriff Wilmot, Phoenix Mayor Kate Gallego, state legislators, tribal leaders, and countless lawyers, judges, and other leaders from across the state. Their statements of support included recognition of her expertise and professionalism, but they also painted a striking picture of who she is as a person, from recounting how she volunteered to officiate a wedding for someone in need, highlighting her mentorship of aspiring lawyers, to emphasizing her love, kindness, and care as a wife and mother. In Justice Cruz, Arizonans will have a Supreme Court justice who understands the struggles of everyday people, who is motivated by a love for community and state, and who has lived a life of integrity, honor, and selflessness, and who will never forget where she came from. I could not be more proud of this appointment, and I trust that Judge Maria Elena Cruz will represent the state well on the Arizona Supreme Court. And with that, it's my honor to formally introduce you all to Judge Maria Elena Cruz.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, family, and friends, the Arizona Supreme Court began to operate on February 14th of 1912. 113 years and 49 justices later, I will be only the 6th woman to serve in this position. I'll be the first Latina and the first person of African descent. For many, this day is long overdue. And so today we celebrate. We celebrate that Arizonans will look at their highest court and see a group that looks more like them. Thank you, Governor Hobbs, for giving that to our state and for taking Arizona off the list of states that have never had a Black Supreme Court justice in their number. I'd also like to thank Governor Hobbs and her team for offering a process that was honest and transparent. I'm humbled that you have placed your confidence and trust in me to carry out this important role for the people of our state, a state that I do love. I'd also like to thank all of you who supported my nomination from one corner of the state to the other. Governor Hobbs will be glad to not have to hear my name for a while. You have made your voices heard. I appreciate you all, and especially the Latina Mentoring Project, Arizona Women Lawyers Association, Los Abogados, the Hispanic National Bar Association, the Arizona Black Bar, the NAACP, and Alliance for Justice. There are so many more that I thank for their support. All of them invested of their time and energy to this effort, and also all of the presiding judges from all the counties in our state. I thank you all, and I thank especially the people from Yuma. Yuma made me. From the age of 14, they gave me the opportunities that I needed to thrive and the trust once I became an attorney and later a judge to make decisions on behalf of our community. I'd like to thank my family for their unwavering support, my father, my mother, my in-laws, my son, my daughter, and especially my husband of 27 years, Glenn, who is quick to tell everyone that he didn't marry Judge Cruz. He married a young woman with dreams of becoming a lawyer and saving the world. He is my partner and the love of my life. As a new justice, I promise to bring not only my 20 years of judicial experience, including service on the Cocopah Tribal Court, the Superior Court, and the Court of Appeals, and a deep respect and loyalty for the rule of law, but also a perspective that is informed by growing up, living, raising a family, and working in rural Arizona. A personal understanding of challenges faced by those who are marginalized because of their color or their gender. I will do the work of applying the law fairly, but I will also do so while acknowledging that access to justice is limited and there's much work to be done in ensuring that poverty or lack of education do not continue to be barriers for Arizonans' understanding and use of the legal system. I will work in earnest to continue to educate the public on the work of the courts and the resources that are available to them, to promote legal education programs that bring more legal practitioners to rural communities, and to mentor those who share my passion for service in the law but have no one to guide them. And so today, we pause, we celebrate, we rejoice, but we quickly resume the task of working together for the advancement of all of our Arizona people. Thank you.
Well, good morning. I'm Chief Justice Ann Timmer. On behalf of my colleagues who are all here today, I wish to extend first my congratulations to Judge, soon-to-be Justice, Maria Elena Cruz, and also to thank the Commission on Appellate Court Appointments and the Governor and her staff for the heavy lift that is merit selection. Merit selection it's not a perfect system, but it is a wonderful system to identify and appointing qualified judges in our appellate jurisdictions here in the state. But it takes a lot of work, and so we deeply appreciate all the work that everyone has done to vet the very qualified people who applied for and interviewed for this position. As far as Judge Cruz goes, she first came to my attention while I was on the court, and she was a Yuma County Superior Court judge, and we went to Yuma for oral argument. She contacted me to see if I would like to kayak on the Colorado River at 4 in the morning before argument. The answer was easy. No, I don't. But that was my introduction to Maria Elena Cruz. She has an adventurous spirit, and she's always wanted to go out and accomplish things. I think that captured our attention when Yuma County needed a presiding judge. That's a Supreme Court appointment. And I felt strongly, at least, as did my colleagues at the time, that it was time for Yuma then to have its first woman presiding judge, and it needed a very strong voice in that community. And she was that strong voice, serving as the presiding judge for a few years. I watched with interest as her career advanced to the Court of Appeals. Obviously, we've overseen her work through the years and seen that she has the academic heft and analytical ability to do that job. But there's more to the job of being a Supreme Court justice than simply deciding cases. An important part is the regulation of the practice of law and the oversight of the courts in our communities. From that perspective, our current court, everyone, I believe, is from Maricopa County. And people say, well, we needed the rural perspective. There is no rural perspective on what the law is. However, there is a tremendous need for a rural perspective on the regulatory aspects of the court. So it's extraordinarily valuable that when we had former Chief Justice Brutnell in the court from Yavapai, that we could say, well, how do these innovations or these rules, how do they work? Would they work in rural Arizona? Because it is extraordinarily important to the court that everyone have equal access to justice and is able to accommodate the procedures and policies of the court. So having someone from Yuma and a former Superior Court judge to boot is a tremendous boon to our court, but even more so to have that strong voice who are able to be among the 7 of us who all have strong voices. That probably surprises you. Will be able to hold her own in the room and to contribute to ensuring that the correct decisions are made at our court. So we're very pleased with Governor Hobbs' appointment, and we welcome soon-to-be Justice Maria Elena Cruz to our midst. Congratulations to both of you, and to wherever you are. There you are. There you are. Congratulations.
Okay, we're going to open things up for questions. I believe Telemundo had the first question.
Yes, for Judge. ¿Sí nos puede decir, por favor, qué significa para ustedes ser nombrada primera latina en la Comisión de Supreme Court?
Sí, absolutamente. Es un privilegio para mí poder representar a la comunidad latina en este estado. Las cortes deberían reflexionar o reflejar la comunidad en la que sirven. Entonces, pienso que ya era buen tiempo, buena hora de tener una latina en nuestra corte. Tenemos a dos latinos, los magistrados López y Bean, que no hablan español, pero vamos a trabajar en eso.
Sí, otra última pregunta. ¿Cuál es el mensaje, obviamente, para la comunidad?
El mensaje para la comunidad latina es que la corte está aquí para servirles. Servimos una función pública y estamos aquí para todos. Tenemos recursos, tenemos programas para poder facilitar su entre y que se escuchen sus causas. Entonces, si no sabe cómo llevar su litigación o su causa, busque recursos porque están ahí y queremos ayudarles. Queremos estar ahí para dar el servicio que nuestra Constitución le asegura a todos en nuestro estado.
All right, we're going to start with on-topic questions. Howie?
Okay, I'll start with you, Governor. Same question. Don't worry, Judge. You're in the on deck. Come on down to the line, Governor. There's been a lot of discussion over the years about DEI and.
I'm going to stop you right there. Do not insult
I am not.
with this question.
Well, here's
She
my
is
question.
eminently qualified, and that is, I hope you asked Governor Ducey the same question when he appointed her to the appellate court.
If you hear me out, my question is, given your statements about being the first Black, the first Hispanic woman, how important was it to you when choosing a justice?
I don't know how that makes your question any better. I looked at qualifications, and I looked at who will best serve on the court to represent the entire state of Arizona. And now our court looks more like Arizona. But this was not about that. This is about having someone who's eminently qualified and will serve well in this capacity.
Judge, let me, at the risk of getting yelled at again, which is my role here, I read through your application, and you made a point in there about talking about the lack of diversity on the court. So tell us why it's important to have someone with your background who looks like you on the court.
Because the courts serve the people in the community. And my question would be the opposite. Why should the courts not reflect the population? Why should a state that is so diverse have a Supreme Court that looks like one racial aspect of our state? Unfortunately, when you walk the halls of the Supreme Court fourth floor and you look, the further back you go, the less diversity you see, even in terms of gender, right? The fact that we've had 49 justices and we've only had 5 women does not engender trust from citizens in the court. And so the courts are an expression of people's self-governance, right? And if we are self-governing, then the court should be the self. And lastly, I'll say this to the question you asked earlier. The Arizona Constitution speaks to the importance of considering diversity. It says that all things equal, when you're looking at qualified applicants, you should look at the composition of the state in selecting members of the Supreme Court and the appellate courts. So there's nothing improper with taking into account the fact that an applicant is a woman, that an applicant is a woman of color, and that an applicant is Latino. It's something to be considered, and I hope it will be considered more often, and it's something to be celebrated.
Okay,
I believe I have bipartisan support because people in my community have seen the work that I have done. I have approached my time in the law with a heart for service. I did not set out on a path to eventually get to the Supreme Court. That was never my goal. My goal was to serve my community, an area that is known as a legal desert, where it's very difficult to get an attorney. I came to the law because I had a car accident, and that was my first exposure to an attorney. And in order to have an attorney even give me a consult, and I know this is strange for people in Maricopa County, where you can't take 2 steps without running into a personal injury lawyer, but my father knew someone who was able to get me an appointment. And I saw in that person someone who could champion my cause. And I thought, this is something that I can do to help vindicate people's rights. Now, I didn't think at that point that I would end up becoming a judge. I became a prosecutor, then a defense attorney. I opened my practice, and I was happy serving in that capacity. When I was approached by the Cocopah Indian Tribe, I served. Then there was need on our bench, and I answered that call. And then I was encouraged by people in my community to apply for the Court of Appeals, and I answered that call. And similarly, I was encouraged and asked to apply for this position. So when you ask about bipartisan support, I think it's just an expression of people's confidence in the work that I have done. I have never been a very political person. The head of the Democratic Party in Yuma will tell you that when I walked in back in 2008 for the first time saying I'm Maria Elena Cruz and I'm running for judge, nobody knew who I was. And I've stayed away from the political entanglements. But people watch the work that you do, especially in small communities. In a rural county, you're in the paper all the time. They're watching. The community is watching. And so I want to think that's why they have supported me all the way to here.
Jueza, muy buenos días. Mi pregunta es, ¿cuál es su interpretación legal sobre la situación que están enfrentando los inmigrantes indocumentados actualmente? Y sobre todo, ¿qué rol, qué papel va a tener ahora la Corte Suprema en la defensa de los derechos de los inmigrantes indocumentados?
Hay muchas preguntas acerca de lo que está sucediendo en este tiempo en cuanto a nuestro gobierno al nivel federal. Nosotros, los que somos jueces, tengo 20 años en una posición como juez, aunque ahora por primera vez en la Corte Suprema de Justicia, no damos opiniones en avanzado de qué es lo que vamos a decidir. Pero sí puedo decir que las personas que están en nuestro estado, que cuando llega una causa a raíz de lo que está sucediendo en el ámbito federal, cuando llega una causa a nuestro estado y sea una pregunta a nivel estatal, estaré lista para considerarla y para aplicar la ley de un modo justo y de un modo que ellos puedan saber que no importa de qué lado salga, se les trató con justicia y no de una perspectiva que no respeta su entorno cultural y experiencia en este estado.
Es importante para ellos saber, ¿cuentan con derechos aquí en Arizona? ¿La gente indocumentada tiene derechos? ¿Tienen derechos?
Yo no voy a dar consejo legal a ninguna persona, pero para conseguir consejo legal hay recursos. Hay abogados que pueden dar ayuda y lo que sí les puedo garantizar es que cuando vengan a nuestras cortes, ahora van a poder ver se van a poder ver un poquito más reflejados hasta la corte más alta de este estado.
Judge, any chance for...
Well, I'm going to ask the same thing. I'm going to ask the same thing you were. Good morning. I'm Stacy Barchinger. I'm with the Arizona Republic. Sorry, I'm on the floor. I wonder. I had other questions for you, but I wonder if you could just answer those same questions in English for those of us whose Spanish needs to be learned.
Sure thing. So my answer to the question is that, first of all, we do recognize that there are federal issues that are at play now. I've been a judge for 20 years and know that one of our duties is to not answer questions that are not formally before us. So I'm not going to give an advanced sort of opinion on how I would rule on an immigration issue or whether an immigration issue will have an impact at the state level. What I will say is that when the people in our state whether they are directly impacted by these policies and rules, when they look at our court, now all the way up to the Supreme Court of our state, they'll be able to see themselves reflected, and they'll have a little bit more confidence in the fact that decisions that are going to be made from a perspective that doesn't take into account their diversity.
Can I ask, I had two other easy questions for you. Can you you mentioned some of the people that are here with you, but if you could just tell us who the rest of the folks are? And
Sure.
then, it sounded like the governor said you go back to Yuma for one of the specialty courts. Where do you live now?
So I am a resident of Yuma County still. I'm an appointment out of Maricopa County, which is really interesting. Thank you so much for raising that, because when I talked about the fact that I represent rural Arizona, there's not a requirement per se for the Supreme Court, but there is a requirement for the Court of Appeals that a number of seats be held for judges from outside of Maricopa County. That's how important having the perspective of our entire state is. And I'm going to continue answering them backwards. Restitution court is a court that helps ensure that victims of crime receive compensation, financial compensation for their loss. So if a person has been convicted and there's been a restitution judgment ordered against them, then restitution court brings in people who have not been paying to figure out why is that not happening, how can we encourage this person to fulfill those orders. And I have to say, it started in Maricopa County, we brought it to Yuma, and now the Chief Justice has made it part of her strategic agenda to have a restitution court in every county of our state before her term as Chief Justice concludes. All right, and we can talk about restitution court the rest of the day if you would like. It's a topic near and dear to my heart. I'll introduce you to who's here now. I'll start from my right. This is Daniel Avino. This is my father-in-law and veteran of about at least 5 different wars, a true hero in our family and just a pillar of our family. This is my mother-in-law, Rosa Avino. They have been married over 55 years now, right? How many?
We're going to be 55.
55 this year, and they're an inspiration and an example for us. This is my father, Eduardo Cruz, the original Mr. Cruz. My father is a retired federal officer, and that's what took us to Yuma, work with the Border Patrol. We lived in Puerto Rico, so at 14, from Puerto Rico, didn't speak English. I was extracted, kidnapped, and brought to Arizona. Actually, I just had my anniversary. January 14th is my anniversary. I swore that I would never forgive him, but everything turned out all right. This is my mother, Maxima Baez. My mother is of Dominican descent. She was born in the Dominican Republic and has been one of the hardest working people that I have ever encountered in my life, and an incredible example to me. This is my husband, Glenn Avino. We have been married for 27 years. In March, it'll be 28 years, and as I mentioned during my remarks, when people have asked him, the reason he says what he says is because people have asked him, what's it like being married to Judge Cruz? And he says, I didn't marry Judge Cruz. We were kids, and we have been together through this entire experience, and he has been an incredibly supportive partner and incredible parent and husband. This is my son, Diego Avino. And this is my daughter, Sofia Avino. And this is my Chief Justice.
All right, I think ABC 15 had a question, and then we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more, and we gotta call our outs.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask either to the governor or to you, Justice Cruz now. We've seen courts often externally be kind of politicized over the last couple of years, sometimes internally as well. Can you address how you would kind of ease people's fears that that would be something that you would bring to the court? Not saying that you would, but just as an assumption now that a lot of people assume these picks are very political.
Well, the selections are made by governors and presidents, right? So by political entities. And judges and justices appointed bring with them their background, their experience, and the values that got them selected to fill these positions in the first place. So that is a reality. But when we are in the room debating issues, we're not advocating for, or should not be advocating for, a political position or a particular outcome. That's one of the freeing things about being a judicial officer, as opposed to being one of the litigators, where you have a particular outcome in mind. A true, an honest judge and justice is going to look at the law openly, fairly, and give it a read that is faithful to its meaning. And that's what I hope to be able to do.
All right,
Got some non-judge questions whenever you're.
yeah, let's do two non-judge ones. We got Howie and Cameron, and then I think we gotta call this Rob's.
Governor, a number of states have enacted laws to restrict the ownership of land in the state against people who from other countries or other hostile countries. A number of states have done this. We've seen this issue here come up with the Saudi farms. We've seen the issue come up with some Chinese operations buying up land. What's your thought? Do we need some protections against foreign ownership of land in the state?
You have seen me take decisive action to protect our land and our groundwater from corporations who are pumping unchecked and harming local families, local farms. And I will continue to do that, and I will consider options on the table that help us do that, to give us more tools to do that.
But should there be a
I'm not going to comment on something that's not in front of me in terms of legislation or action.
Cameron?
Yeah, Governor, we're in week 2 of the Trump administration right now.
Are we? It feels like year 2.
So I'm trying to figure out if you've had any direct communication with Tom Homan or any other administration officials in regards to immigration ICE raids right now, what those conversations have been like, if any.
My team has been directed to continue our efforts at coordination. We have done that. We're in pretty constant communication. I will say it's been more than a little frustrating as a border state governor who has taken a lot of action to help keep our border safe and secure, that we're not getting a lot of information and things are being announced without talking to us first. So we're working on establishing those lines of communication that have been very effective up until now.
Have there been any very specific challenges that your team has faced in recent days that has been of point of tension?
I think largely just the announcements coming out of Washington that we're not being told about first, like sending military, but we don't know what that looks like.
Okay, last question to Brad.
Oh, you're right.
Hi.
Governor. Hi. This is about the Isaac School District. It does not appear the teachers will get paid this week. The legislature isn't moving fast enough. What specifically are you doing to help resolve that situation, to get the teachers paid and help the school year come to a close, and or find another district that Isaac can partner with to get out of this mess?
People on my team have been working around the clock to try to resolve this issue. I think you have the short-term issue of making sure that school is not disrupted for these students, these families, these teachers who this is happening to them through no fault of their own. It's happening by severe mismanagement, and obviously those folks need to be held accountable, and that's a longer-term solution. We're focused right now on making sure that classrooms, that students can stay in their classroom, and that the teachers and other staff that are working hard get paid, so that there's not disruption in their learning or their school year. And that's the focus right now. We've been having conversations with so many stakeholders, with the legislature. We've been involved in the potential legislative solution, and I'm hopeful that we can get that to the finish line, obviously sooner rather than later.
Do you believe the teachers will be paid this week?
I think that we will come to a solution. We have to.
Do you think the school board should be let go as part of that?
That's a longer-term discussion, not part of the immediate getting teachers paid, keeping kids in their classrooms.
All right, we're gonna call wraps, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, sure.
And maybe with the governor.
Someone can help you. It's here.
Got the mic and everything.